And the man I worked with in Japan, he is a quantum physicist. He's a theoretical physicist.
So you went out to Japan to do some teaching there,
Yes,
I think, didn't
yes,
you? Yeah.
I went there to teach in his school. Which
Yes.
he'd been turned on to homeopathy through reading quantum mechanics at Yale or
Right.
Harvard, one of those two,
Right.
and realised this is the same thing. And then started to study homeopathy himself. And then opened a school in Japan.
So can you give us some examples of other situations where transformation has happened so dramatically as your situation?
Early in my days of teaching in my own school, I used to go to seminars given by George Vitoukas, a very famous Greek homeopath.
Okay.
I mean, George was king of homeopathy for a while. And his seminars were very dramatic in the sense that he would take cases live on the stage in front of maybe 200 homeopaths.
Okay, so what does taking a case mean? Does someone come along and tell their story like they did with you?
Yes, someone comes along and tells their story.
Yes.
In this particular case, which I've never forgotten, there was an Irish homeopath who'd been treating a young boy in Ireland for some time with no success, no real progress made. And she talked to the boy's mother and they agreed to come to this seminar for George to take his case. This was happening live on stage. The boy was brought in on a stretcher, put on a table.
So what was that? What was actually wrong with the boy?
He couldn't walk.
Did they know why he couldn't walk?
They didn't know. Well, at this stage, nobody knew anything
Okay.
about the boy. He'd just been brought in. George spoke to the homeopath and spoke to the mother. They were sat down somewhere. George went to the boy and he whispered in his ear. You could hear it. What is it troubles you? And the boy said something like, I miss my daddy. Something like that. And George walked over to the mother and said, what's this about his daddy? Oh, the daddy left 3 or 4 years ago, and he's been like this ever since. George said, fine, take him away. Spoke to the homeopath and said, bring him back tomorrow morning. In the meantime, give him this remedy. And he told her what remedy to give. The next day, they brought that boy back. He ran onto the stage, dancing. It was unbelievable. It was like, I don't know how to call it, you know.
Like a miracle in a way, isn't it?
I'm hesitating to use that word, but this boy had been transformed from this little creature who couldn't walk into this joyous little boy who kind of ran up to George and threw his arm.
Yeah.
That was deeply, deeply impressive. What George had done with that sentence was found out what needed to be cured in the case. The boy was grieving for his father.
And then he knows from his experience.
He knows from experience.
The
remedy that is most likely, it's one of two, but the one that's most likely in this case is a remedy called Ignatia Mara. And he gave him 1/30th potency.
So it's not just the remedy, it's also the right potency as well.
Who knows what the right potency is? Actually, there are ways of making a determination where the potency should be. We can't go into that now, it's too complicated, technical. But George said, have you got this remedy and this potency? Yes, take him away, give it to him, bring him back to see me in the morning. That was the story. Wow.
Quite inspiring, isn't it, for someone that's like yourself, who's working as a homeopath, and you see that situation.
Yes. I used to use a video camera in my consulting rooms to record the conversation with the patients. And it was on the understanding that I could show those videos to my students as part of their training. And sometimes students would be weeping at these stories that we hear. I mean,
You must hear terrible stories.
We hear some terrible stories.
Yeah.
Absolutely dreadful. But they serve to enable us to ourselves be healed, because each time you hear one of those stories, a little bit of yourself gets healed, because it stirs stuff up
That's
inside.
interesting. So you as a practitioner, you hear someone's story,
Yeah.
and you're saying...
And if there's a resonance
Yes.
between that story and one's own story, so to speak,
Okay, it's going to trigger something in you.
it'll move you.
Of course. Yes.
And moreover, the students who are listening to those cases on video, it moves them.
Them as well, yeah. So it's a chain effect almost.
It is like electric switches going off in sequence.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen with students. I've seen students break down in a class, astonished that somebody is sitting there on a videotape telling their story, and it's like it's their story. And that starts a healing process for them.
That's right, because something's opened up, isn't
Yes.
it? Like a door has become open.
It's like we're talking about the principle of resonance.
Yeah.
So somebody hears that story and it resonates with them, and they start to respond, and that's a transforming process for them. Sometimes people, I'm talking about students now, or patients will come and I'll ask a question. I don't ask all that many, but I'll ask a question, or another practitioner will ask a question, and they'll say, "Oh, I never thought of that. Oh, that meant, oh yes, well, in that case, this is what happened." And that's the key to the whole case.
Yeah. And that must mean for a practitioner an incredible kind of feeling that you've unlocked the case, you've found the key, and the patient is now hopefully going to hear, and their life will be very much changed.
If you hear that in here, you can go, aha, that sounds like X remedy. Or, aha, that's incredibly important. I'll have to search for that.
Yeah.
Because that can take hours, even longer. Once the patient's gone, one starts to... There's 3 stages for me. There's receiving the case, and therefore resonating. Reflecting on it internally, and then responding.
So when the patient comes to see you for an hour and a half, whatever it is, it's not finished for you when they walk out the door. It's often just starting.
Oh, no, it's only just started.
Yeah.
I've then got to reflect and see if I can identify that part of that story that holds the answer, as it were, that unlocks the box. It's Pandora's box.
It must be, actually.
It is, that's what it is. Because this person, including me, has had this stuff locked away inside them and have no access to it, and therefore can't process it, and therefore can't be transformed by the release of that, because it's energy again. It's negative energy.